Hey insiders, have you ever wondered what it takes to make it in the new music business? We sure have. So we asked the man who literally wrote the book on how to make it in the new music business, Ari Herstand. We discussed the most important questions artists need to be asking themselves before pursuing a professional career in music, as well as how to develop the most effective strategies to have a successful crowdfunding campaign. This is one conversation you don't want to miss. Coming up.
This episode of the MUBUTV Insider video series is brought to you by the Music Business Registry. The Music Business Registry is the leading music industry publisher of the most up-to-date contact information for major and independent record label A&R, music publishers, artist managers, music attorneys, music supervisors, and much, much more. The Music Business Registry is the trusted industry standard and source serving the music business community for over 30 years with the most accurate and up-to-date contact information available. Their titles include the A&R Registry, the Film and Television Music Guide, the Music Publisher Registry, and the Music Attorney Registry. All of their publications are available in PDF, CSV, or online subscription. Visit musicregistry.com and use coupon code MUBUTV10 at checkout. That's musicregistry.com, coupon code MUBUTV10. When you're ready to put your music to work, musicregistry.com.
Hi, we're coming back to you live from Muse Expo here in Hollywood at the Roosevelt Hotel. We managed to catch up with independent recording artist Ari Herstand. Thank you so much for joining us, Ari.
Thanks for having me. Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you. You've been a very successful independent recording artist for a long time now, and I'm curious, what would you say are some of the, most important things that indie artists need to know about doing that as a career today?
I think, one of the most important things is to understand they need to manage their business themselves and really pay attention to the business side of their music career. In the past, you would just get good enough where somebody would kind of swoop in and pick you up and be like, hey, I'm going to manage you, and set you up with a record label, and you don't have to do any of the business ever again, and you can just kind of do whatever you want. Now, independent artists, if they want to succeed, they really have to push their careers along a lot further than they probably expect when they're starting off. And I mean, for me personally, I have had very little representation my entire career. I've booked virtually all of my shows and been my own manager and a lot of times publicist. And so a lot of things I didn't necessarily anticipate having to do, but I realized early on that if I wanted any sort of music career, that I would have to do those things myself. So I think really most importantly, musicians especially starting off, need to know that they really need to focus on the business side of their music.
In doing that, it seems like you really need to have a commitment then to learning the business side today, which is something that a lot of artists feel that they don't need to do. Would you agree that that's not the case?
Yeah, no, I mean, and it constantly changes every day, and so keeping up with it is very important. Just reading a music business book that was released 10 years ago is not really going to help you in managing your independent music career, because even a book that was released 5 years ago is going to be outdated. And so, sure, you can learn, timeless tips and tricks from a lot of wise people in the industry, but I think keeping up with it, reading the blogs as they are in real time as they're coming out. There are a lot of helpful books out there that you can read, but a lot of classes that musicians can take. But keeping up with it in real time is so important, and being disciplined about that. I maintain a 50-50 rule where 50% of my time is spent on my art, and then 50% of my time is spent on the business. And it's not split up every day. I don't do from 8 to 1 and whatever. It's just if I'm working on a certain project. So when I was writing my new album, I basically spent 6 months just writing that for about 80% of every single day, and I was just working on the art. But then when come time for the album release, I spent 80% of every day working on promoting that release and really pushing it out there, and then booking the tour. And so it's a balance. And so, but at the end of the year, it should work out to be that you've spent pretty much half of your year working on the business and half of your working on the art.
You mentioned the word touring when you were talking about booking that. Do you remember, first of all, when you first started touring? And second of all, for our audience, when does an artist know when the right time to tour is?
I mean, there's debate in the music community about this. I maintain that you really should have a strong handle over your local scene first. If you can't figure out how to break locally, I mean, you have to be in a large enough city where there are different kinds of niches and scenes. So if you're in a city of 20,000 people, that doesn't count as local. So find the biggest music scene around you. That's, I would say, in a city of at least 100,000 people or something like that, where there are sects of music lovers that would like to go see music. And so I maintain that you should really figure out how to break locally. And because if you can't figure out how to get people to your shows in your hometown, what makes you think that people are going to get out to your shows elsewhere? And so, I mean, it's and the thing is breaking locally means different things to everyone. So, for instance, me personally, when I was starting my career in Minneapolis, I was a little bit poppier than the scene. The scene was very indie. So the Minneapolis music scene was very indie, and I was a bit more mainstream sounding, I guess. I don't know. I sang a little bit more in tune than they preferred. So, I never got any press. I never got anyone to write about me. I never got played on the radio station, the local music shows, or the kind of the indie kind of hipster radio station that everyone listened to. I never got any of that. But I knew that there were people who really did like my music in town. And I ended up bringing 800 people to my shows in Minneapolis. That kind of when I left at my peak in Minneapolis, building this local scene without any press or any radio. So, and it goes the other way too. There was a lot of bands who got a lot of press and a lot of radio, and then couldn't figure out how to translate that into actual people coming to the shows. And they're like, well, we're going to have better success on the road. So then they go on the road and no one comes to the shows on the roads. They get very discouraged and they break up. So it takes a lot of discipline to figure out how to get people to your shows and to promote those shows. And a lot of musicians are uncomfortable with self-promotion. I mean, everyone's uncomfortable with that. It's like, it doesn't come naturally necessarily, I don't think, to anyone. I've become accustomed to it, and I learned that I kind of had to do that early on, especially as a singer-songwriter. And it can be a turnoff to a lot of people, and especially because, again, people are used to musicians having handlers and publicists and labels and managers to do all the yelling for them and all the promo for them. But a lot of musicians now, especially now, don't have those people to do that for them. So they need somebody. So engaging a street team is also really important. I found early on that if I got a group of 10 to 20 like diehard fans, that they would be my evangelists. They would go out and promote the shows and promote my music, and better than I could ever do that.
Was that successful for you in Minneapolis?
Yeah, I mean, especially in Minneapolis. I mean, I've kind of taken it, and when I go on tour, I try to rally up at least a few people in every city that I go to that can go poster and Facebook and put pass out flyers and really get it around. But in Minneapolis, I experimented a lot because I was building the career there, building the scene, and so yeah, some of my favorite outings where we would get together 10 people. At night, we'd put on all black. We'd go out with staple guns and tape rolls, and we'd go around town. We'd split up the town, and we'd go and we'd poster, light poles and poster poles and staple it all. And then we'd all meet up for drinks afterwards and pizza and hang out. And then we'd also have like Facebooking nights where everybody would get together and invite all their friends to the shows and message people. And so it was really like a movement. And the more people that you have working on a show that want the show to be successful, the more successful it's going to be, because all of, their reach is going to be bigger than just your reach. Right. And they're going to target people that you wouldn't even think to target or wouldn't be able to target. And so, yeah, I mean, if I would say to musicians, if they can actually be part of that street team and work with their street team, I think there's going to be a lot of, it's mutual respect. It's saying like, thank you for helping me promote the show, but I'm going to be out on the front lines with you doing this too. And until you can't do that anymore, I think you should. Like on tour, I obviously can't go to a town like 2 weeks early to go and poster and everything, and they get that. But then reward them somehow and thank them for promoting your shows and being on your street team. buy. Obviously, like free tickets to the show is easy. Maybe hang out backstage before the show a little bit. If there's an after party, invite your street team to the after party. Maybe give them some merch, or just show that you really appreciate what they're doing for you. And I think a modern music career overall is really about mutual respect with their fans and a lot of reciprocation. And I think, previously there was a huge gap between the artist and the fan, and artists were completely untouchable. And now that social media and the internet has completely broken all those walls down, and artists have been like lowered from their pedestal, and now with social media, it's like that's a conversation that's now happening between artist and fan. And I think artists misuse social media as just like a megaphone, and they just try to broadcast all their stuff out and say, everyone's going to appreciate what I'm saying and will love what I'm saying, hang on every word. And then when people actually respond to them, if they don't respond back, then those fans get turned off, because that's what's expected. That's the expectation these days from fans to artists, is to be in constant dialogue and communication. So above all, be it on the internet or in person or anything like that, I think maintaining just a mutual level of respect, reciprocation, and constant communication is really a way to engage a loyal fan base.
Ari, you mentioned the idea of, which is a really interesting concept, because in the past it was, here's my album and I'll see you in 3 years.
Right.
Now you talk about you have to be much more engaged with your fans. Do you spend a lot of time? Do you feel that artists need to spend a lot of time in that engagement when they're building a base? And if they don't, I've heard if they don't, it really is to their detriment.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Today.
Sure, absolutely. I mean, today, right, it's no longer about the album cycle. The major labels still create their calendars by the album releases, and they work the album cycles, but that's such an antiquated model, and fans don't look for that. So if you release an album this week, fans next week can be like, all right, now what? What do you have now? What do you have this week for me? And artists look at this like, well, I just spent the last 2 years working on this album. What do you mean, what do you have for me next week? But that's what fans expect. They expect to be fed constantly every day. And it doesn't need to be an album every week or a highly produced music video every week. However, some YouTubers have been incredibly successful by putting out highly produced music videos every single week. But you have to work up to that. But constantly putting out content, whatever that is. So Instagram, just like putting the Instagram out and staying top of mind, I think is really important. And tweeting constantly and interacting on Facebook with people who are commenting on anything and responding to them. And so, it's an expectation now. And fans expect, especially the younger ones, to be able to really access their favorite artists if they're not superstars. I mean, I think fans understand that superstars, if they're getting thousands of tweets an hour, they're not going to be able to respond to everybody. But if a fan is out there following an independent musician, and they see they have 5,000 Twitter followers, like if they don't get a response, they're gonna feel snubbed. And it sounds weird because especially a lot of the musicians who didn't grow up in this kind of social media internet era, because they again looked at it as like on a one-way avenue. It's like, I put out music to you and you love it and pay me money. But that's not how it is anymore. And so, yeah, I think the artists who don't realize that early on are going to have a very difficult road ahead of them.
Interesting. As I'm listening to you, I'm thinking it's true what they say that, you brought up that term in front of your mind, or in the mind.
Top of mind. Yeah.
Top of mind.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because one of the things that I've always heard, and I believe vehemently, is that today the most important element in marketing music is not power, it's not money, it's not market share. It's the ability to get people's attention, because it's the most difficult thing to do and to maintain.
Yeah.
And when you speak about that, it reminds me just of the different levels that one must do continually. I spoke to somebody this morning who runs Viacom in India. And they spoke about the fact that it's not enough today to be the #1 television network there. You must now also engage people post television show. You must engage them on the internet. Then you must engage them mobilely afterwards. You must get them completely engaged in your program.
Absolutely. And I think The Daily Show and John Oliver last week tonight have done an amazing job at realizing that, especially because their target viewership are kind of these millennials. And I mean, John Oliver and HBO, to their credit, they put all of their segments up on YouTube. And the traditional mindset for a lot of these television stations is like they should only be hosted, people should only watch them in the time slot that they have it, or if they can log in via their cable network to watch it on our website, but they have to pay for cable to do that. And they, HBO has realized, and Comedy Central have realized, Viacom have realized that if you can really expand your reach and your fan base through virality and through if you're putting out excellent content, then people are going to want to share it, but you have to give them the ability to share it. And by John Oliver and HBO putting up all of their content on HBO for people to share, it increases the exposure of the show, and then more people then end up. I know I've tuned in now to John Oliver because I've seen segments that people have posted on Facebook from YouTube videos. I'm like, oh, that's really interesting. I should watch the show now. And so it's the same. It translates just over to music just as well. Like, people want to, the labels and a lot of the classic rock musicians who don't really get it, they want to put everything behind a paywall, and they think that you shouldn't be able to even listen to our music without paying. That's the whole debate, is that there should be no more free streaming tier or whatever. It's like, that's totally counterintuitive to what the audience, just the general public of today's environment expect. And I mean, for better or worse, they expect everything to be at their fingertips immediately. If they want to check you out, and so if I want to check out a new artist and I've been hearing about them, I'll go to Spotify. If they're not on Spotify, I'm done. That's my thing. I'm just like, I'm not going to work to try to figure out where they are on the internet and try to find their music or whatever. So anyone who doesn't put their music on Spotify, if I'm trying to check them out, they've lost a potential fan. Or same with YouTube. If you're not putting, a lot of people, I go to Spotify, but other people go straight to YouTube. If you're not putting your music on YouTube because you feel like everyone should buy it from you, then you've lost all these potential fans. And I think, for better or worse, recorded music is now turning into a lost leader for the rest of an entire musician's career in revenue stream. And that's really difficult for a lot of people to accept, because, and look at, I'm a musician. I spent so much money on my latest album. I got, I ran a Kickstarter, and I even had to take out a loan. And like, I spent way more money than I have on my album because I wanted to make it great. And I knew that I had a vision, and I wanted to make this the best it could be. And yeah, I understood going into it that I wasn't going to make back that investment, that money directly from album sales or streams. But I have made back the money in all the other revenue streams that are a part of the career. So people listen to the album on Spotify or YouTube or wherever. Most of them didn't buy it, fine. I had a lot of pre-orders from Kickstarter, but a lot of people didn't buy it. But by listening to it, their friends showing them a video, or the friends sharing the playlist on Spotify or something like that, got them out to my shows. They bought a lot of merch at the shows, or they supported me in other ways from all the different streams that I can make from revenue that aren't strictly pay me for my recorded music.
It's interesting. You brought up the Kickstarter aspect. And I know, I think it was about 3 years ago, you ran a very successful Kickstarter campaign, and you raised about $12,000, $13,000 for your album. Can you tell us a bit how you succeeded doing that? Because I know a lot of people fail when going to Kickstarter to try to do that. You succeeded. Can you discuss that with us?
Yeah, and it's interesting because it's a lot of people think that you have to already be famous to run a successful Kickstarter, but there are a lot of examples of famous people or relatively famous people on Kickstarter who try to raise money for a certain project and fail.
Bjork is classic.
Bjork, and there's this girl from one of the actresses on the TV show Girls. I don't remember. It was Saya Mamet, I think. She had a music project with her sister, and they ran their projects. It's kind of about the same mentality of just managing your career, is that you have to be constantly engaging and really keeping up with people and pushing it nonstop for the month that you're running it, and putting out lots of updates and lots of content and reminding people about it. But also, like when I was running my Kickstarter, I was doing weekly streams from my home studio. And so I'd play basically like a weekly concert of all the new songs that I'm working on. And so a lot of people tuned in to hear all the new songs that I was working on. And then I ran contests during the Kickstarter. So I said anyone who pledged today, I would write a quick little song and post it on YouTube about you, or include it, or like with your name in it or something like that, or just a little. And I got like 50 pledges in that one day, and I spent the next like week working on all of these songs. I mean, they were little dumb little 20-second little whatever things, but it was fun because they knew that for those 20 seconds I devoted and I spent time working on their little ditty, their little song. It wasn't a real full-on produced song. And so I think artists like that's what I did and what worked for me and things that I thought to do. But there's no silver bullet. There's no one thing that you should do for your Kickstarter. You should get creative and hone in on what makes you unique and what you're best at, and the connection that you have with your fans, and just heighten that experience throughout your Kickstarter campaign and leading up to it. And so once you launch it, then you have to be in your A game every single day about interacting with fans. If someone tweets, you tweet them right back. If someone emails you a question, email them right back. Everything on Facebook, you should basically, I ran my Kickstarter campaign like a lot of people run album campaigns. And so I rebranded everything that I have on the internet. And so all my social profiles, my website, everything was rebranded to be my Kickstarter. So if anyone was landing on any of my pages or any of my posts, were all Kickstarter with the link. A very effective tactic on Instagram is when you post a photo on Instagram, you can say, if you're promoting something, you say the link is in the bio. And because on Instagram, you can't include links in the actual post. And so a very effective tactic that a lot of people have been using is by changing out the link in their bio on Instagram, because it's the only place that you can actually click to something else. And so whatever they're promoting, they'll change that out. So if it's a new video, they'll put that link in the bio and they'll change it out. So for a Kickstarter or Pledge Music, you put that link in the bio. And then always just putting out the link everywhere. And so also, I mean, a thing that a lot of independent artists don't want to do or don't feel like they should do is send out personal messages. And it's tough because you're putting yourself out there, and when you're contacting people individually or personally, they feel like, well, I shouldn't have to do that. But it's incredibly effective. And if you just think to yourself, well, if I do this, I'm going to make $5,000. So, more. So, maybe I'll raise 10 grand if I don't do this, but I'll raise 15 grand if I just send out about 50 personal messages to my top Facebook friends, or people in my email contacts or something like that. And if you put it in that perspective, it's like, all right, it's going to be a couple hours of really uncomfortableness of having to contact all of these people personally, individually, say, hey, I'm running this Kickstarter campaign. Would you care to support, and then you get $5,000 more dollars. And you put it in that perspective, you just made $2,500 an hour. So it's worth it. And it's especially when the crowdfunding campaign started off, the backlash was, and I think we've moved past this, but a lot of the backlash was what it sounds like musicians are begging. And that's the wrong mentality to think about it, because the majority of the fans don't see it that way. They see it as, oh, I get to help my favorite musicians, or some musicians I like, or friends, or anyone that I want to support, help them achieve their dreams. They're pursuing something really cool, whatever it is, a startup company, a project, a film, an album, anything, a tour. And I get to be a part of that process. And I think Pledge Music has really honed in on the true idea behind what crowdfunding should be. And that is going along for the ride. And so the thing with Pledge Music is they don't put the dollar amount up there. They if you're going to do the crowdfunding aspect of it and not just a pre-order campaign, it's all based on a percentage. And I talked to Benji Rogers, who's the CEO of Pledge Music, and he said they started with the dollar amount similar to Kickstarter, but they said when they removed the dollar amount and put the percentage up, people actually pledged more money on average than if they didn't see the dollar amount. But really the whole point of a pledge campaign is to be a part of the whole process, because the most interesting part of an artist's career is when they're in the studio, is either in the studio or on stage. Those are the most interesting aspects of all of their careers, or anything what they do. So, and most fans never get a glimpse into what a recording studio is, or into that process at all. So it may seem mundane to veteran musicians. It's like, oh, we're just going to the studio again, or we're just working on the song, or tightening the song, or we're just going to be writing, or whatever. Those things are incredibly exciting for fans. And so if you can welcome them in through that process and post photos to your backers, or do live streams from the studio. I streamed when I was in the studio. I also, this was after I raised the funds, but I kept it going. And so I kind of ran my Kickstarter like Pledge encourages their backers to run it, their campaigns, in that you just keep your fans engaged throughout the whole process. So when I was in the studio, I was streaming constantly from the studio. So, and a lot of people tuned in, and I'd chat with them, and we talk about things that was going on. And I post blog posts about what was happening in the studio. And so I think a very important aspect is just keeping people engaged throughout that whole process.
You know, you've brought up a lot of very interesting points with regards to your own career and how you've chosen to run it. And I'm curious, can you give us what you think some of the most important questions that someone should be asking themselves if they really want a career in music? If they're starting out and they think, this is what I want to do, what are some of the questions? I mean, you've done this for a while and you've been successful at it. What are some of the questions that they should be considering before making this endeavor?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think above all is the question they should ask themselves is do I passionately love music so much that I want to spend every single day of the rest of my life working on this? Because you can't just love music, period, and think that you can embark on a successful music career. Because I love Thai food, but I don't want to eat Thai food every single day for the rest of my life, you know? And so I think it's above just having a love for something. And if you have to have like almost an obsessiveness about music, and to really devote every single day to it, because it's not just an office job where you go and you can turn off once you leave the office. I mean, you're constantly doing it, constantly thinking about it, constantly working at it. You have to change your entire lifestyle for this. And so, I mean, that's a really important question to ask themselves. And also, is this going to make me happy? And honestly, like, that's something, it seems so obvious and it seems so simplistic, but above all, it's such a difficult path and such a difficult career choice, and really starting any small businesses. And I think at the end of the day, it's not about fame and it's not about money. It's really about happiness. And artists, like, I'm not the most successful artist that's out there. I'm not a big superstar. I'm not, there are a lot of artists in my genre who are a lot, quote unquote, more successful than I am, but I'm happy doing what I'm doing. I'm making a fine living supporting myself with my music. And I think if artists just can realize that it's not about the end game, but about the journey, then they're going to be a lot happier. If they can just maybe every week, just take a step back and be like, did I have a good week this week? Am I happy? Do I like what I'm doing? And if not, let's change course a little bit. Maybe I'm pushing something that isn't working, so I need to pivot a little bit, and I need to do things that will make me a little bit happier these days. Because at the end, it's like, why embark on such a difficult career path if it's not going to make you happy?
Wow, such an incredibly insightful interview with Ari. A lot of great value in there for you artists who are building a career in the music business of today. So, insiders, question of the day. What were the most educational aspects of our conversation with Ari? Was it the questions you as an artist need to be asking yourself before pursuing a career as a professional in music? Or was it the most effective strategy for creating and marketing successful crowdfunding campaigns? Or maybe it was something else that stood out to you. If you have any ideas or experiences that you'd like to share with us regarding this video, we'd love to hear from you and connect in the comments below. Thanks so much for watching this video. Make sure to subscribe to MUBUTV for more information on how to educate, empower, and engage your music career. You can also check out a summary of this episode and everything we talked about in the YouTube description as well. And if you enjoyed this video, we'd really love it if you hit the like button and let us know what other kinds of videos and types of content you would like to see on our channel. Hit us up in the comments below, and we'll see you in the next video.